from Macross, Southern Cross, Sentinels, Mosquito, Shadow Chronicles. So we have a library, a growing library of 3D models.
And speaking of, you mentioned the new generation. You guys want to see a new generation photo?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so we are working on the Input Scout, and if everything goes well, we can be launching that soon. We have to work on the sculpt a little.
Yeah. And speaking of the new generation, I want to bring in Dave Killingsworth of Solar Flare Games because you're working on a new generation card game. You're working with Carlos on something.
Actually, there's a couple aspects of what we're doing.
Yeah.
We did Macross Force of Arms, so we did Force of Arms, and then we did Crisis Point, so we really wanted to surface all the aspects of the show. But one of the challenges we got to is a lot of people in tabletop want something they can play with more than just 2 players, so the beta is going to be 1 to 6 player, full co-op, the Freedom Fighters, forcing their way to Reflex Point to fight the Regents. It is a dice and card game, so it's light, it's easy to set up, it's fun to play, and you all should, with your poker cards, which are from something we created, you should get a pre-order card. The pre-order, you can go to it now, it's not live yet, but you can put your information in and make sure you're part of it. One of the things we're doing with the pre-orders I got with Carlos, and we're going to include a 50-inch millimeter resin of the Regis, so when you go to the Regis fight, you can put her out on the board with her placard, and when you fight her. And then one of the other things we're actually doing is right now, Carlos has a nice figure, I think is it Rand or is it Scott?
It's called.
Scott. So we're working with some of my artists to give him some more sculpts. So one of the things, if you pre-order the Invasion game, it'll give you access to ordering 25 to 48-inch resin minis that you can use with the game or just that you can paint. We really wanted to make sure when, as Solar Flare, we work with as many of the other people as possible. And I actually got to talk to the 80s t-shirt guy because everybody from the Southern Cross family wants the cover of the manual for the game done as a t-shirt as well as the flag. And so I think we need to get together and do some of that too.
Consider it done.
So Invasion is going to be coming. If you go to the pre-order on the card, it's not going to charge you, it's not going to take you anywhere. You can just go put my name in, put my information in, and when we go live, it'll notify you that you can pre-order the game. And in addition to that, there's going to be a booster pack for Crisis Point, the Regis Mini, give you access to the SDF 1 playmat for the Force of Arms, which has been sold out for over a year now. Stop laughing. It's my wife. She told me I didn't order enough, and she got to be right again. So, but the good thing is, the final Invasion game is going to be the biggest thing we've ever done. It's going to weigh almost 4 pounds. It's going to have a 2-foot by 3-foot board. You'll have a punch-out miniature, a punch-out standee for every character. Every one of the heroes, there's 4. There's their Cycle, their Cyclone, their Guardian mode, and their Battle mode. So as you play the game and you transform them as you play, you'll be able to change them out. And so it's a lot of cardboard and a lot of really beautiful art. And that's what the box is going to look like. That's what the Regis Mini looks like currently. And I think we even did some of the current work in progress cards for the game as well.
Yeah. So and once again, we're off the website.
The best thing to follow us is on Facebook /SolarFlare Games, solarflaregames.com, and also Twitter's @Brave Frontier. I post a lot of stuff all the time, and one of the things to really remember is if you get part of those groups where I'm posting things, we take feedback from the fans. I'm a fan. I do this because this is my job. This is what I do because I love it. I got hooked on this stuff in the mid-'80s, and I got an opportunity to add things to a universe that I love. And any of you who interact with me online, I know there are some of you here who told me you were coming. If you have ideas that will help what we're doing, we will incorporate them. The way we posed the Saber Cyclone for the art for the card in Invasion was done because one of the fans was like, this is the best pose, I like this the best. We ran it through our artist, and then Tommy saw it too, and we were just like, yeah, that's a great idea. And some of the rules tweaks and some of the way you interact with the Regis and Korg and Sarah, we didn't have Korg and Sarah at first, and they went, Marky and I have Cork and Sarah. Cork hates Scott. So one of the rules in the game is anytime Cork's going to shoot a hero, if he has a choice between Scott and anybody else, he shoots Scott. You know, and Sarah's there to provide all this support of just basically messing with everybody by stuff that's just the game. So the game is super thematic, and the more theme and the more tweaks we do from fans like you. So find me online, interact with us online. Another one of the great Facebook groups is Masters War, is where a lot of the people congregate. They just started a Mosfeta group as well. I'm always there. I'm always posting bits and pieces of what we're doing, and we love your interaction and feedback.
And speaking of the Masters War, you got the Crisis Point game out now. It's now shipping.
Yes, it is. You can get it in game stores everywhere. You can order it at Robotech online. It is one of the deepest strategy. It's a head-to-head combat game, but we really took everything about the characters. Like Dana's special ability is charge. Duh. I mean, that was an easy choice. You know, every problem we solved with a cavalry charge. You know, and so we put a lot of those things in there. Like I said, we do innovation. We do a booster for this because a couple of the characters didn't make it, and so we saved a few of them for later. That's one of the reasons we did the booster pack for Force of Arms, because Roy, people were like, why is it Roy in it? Roy's dead. So we added it in the Grand Canyon booster pack, which you can get from a game store for free. For the Force of Arms game, Roy's in it. Exodor's in it. There's a lot of things fans came back to us and said, why don't you have this? The Grand Canyon's in it. I mean, we put all those things in there because you guys asked for it, so that's why we did it.
Excellent. Dave, thank you for
Yeah, you can finish that.
Yeah. And folks, speaking of gaming, we have a great new board license called Strange Machine Games. Already, they have released Robotech, Attack on the SDF-1, which is now shipping for $80. And later this year, this game will be followed by 2 new games, Robotech, Brace for Impact, and Robotech Cyclone Run. And they've also expanded into the world of role-playing games, with Robotech, a role-playing game, and Robotech the Macross Saga, which will be available for playtesting at Gen Con. So expect more information on the Robotech gaming front. And speaking of fronts, let's talk about Udon and Robotech art books. Yes.
I got a bunch of them.
Okay. So we have the Robotech the Macross Saga Visual Archive now shipping. Tom, you've been working on this a bit, so you've been...
Yeah, so this is one of the most detailed books related to Robotech the Macross Saga. How many of you have Robotech Art 1? That's one of the highly sought after collectibles from the 80s. And that's one of the thickest Robotech reference books that have been out for a long time. But it's become harder to find. When Udon started working on this book, they gathered so much Macross pre-production that this book is as large as Robotech Art 1. And yet it only covers the first third of the saga. So now already you can see that it has 3 times as much content as before. Now, this has sold so well, it's already into its 2nd printing. The second part of the series, which is Robotech the Masters, they're actually still working on this. And this is scheduled to come out next year. This is one of the hardest sections to work on. Like, Dave, you can actually attest to this, the Masters compared to Macross, is that there's so little published material compared to before. But what we were able to do was we were able to dive into the original materials provided by Tatsunoko Productions in Japan to have this book put together. So once it's out, it will be the most comprehensive book on the series, both in the United States or Japan. So this is something that we're really, really looking forward to. Udon is also actually here on the show floor, so I highly recommend that you meet the folks there. Those guys are awesome, and they've just poured all their energy into this.
And moving on, speaking of books, let's talk about Robotech Comics over at Titan.
Yeah, so we've been really happy working with the folks over at Titan Comics. They are the largest publisher of comics in England and in the EU, I believe. And when we moved the license there, they really wanted to have a great launch for Robotech. And when it launched at #1. It was the #1 non-premier comic series to launch, meaning it was not a Marvel or DC book. So outside of Marvel or DC, this was the biggest launch that month. And you can also get the books on Comixology if you missed the issues. They're already working on issue 24. This is how far along they are with the series. So within a short period of time, they've already matched the output of our previous publisher. Wildstorm also did a great job with their run, but this shows the pace picking up over at Titan. And let's move on here. Simon Furman, who had previously worked on Transformers, had written the story arc that we're currently in the middle of. The series is called Event Horizon, and it's also drawn by Henry Presettia. And this is an example of some of their artwork. This started with Free Comic Book Day. This was a huge deal for Robotech. Usually on Free Comic Book Day, comic retailers want to encourage more fans to get into comic books, and we'll have a lot of the highest profile properties at different publishers brought front and center for fans to get into comic books. And this is the first time Robotech's ever been presented to fans on Free Comic Book Day. And the 0th issue, which is where they started the Event Horizon event, that just blew out. It sold out during Free Comic Book Day. Well, blew out as a freebie would go, but it went extremely fast. It was amazing. So now Simon, this is the, I believe, yeah, that's the 0th issue. So right now we're up to issue 22 that was just released. And fans are realizing that we are just completely, Simon's gone completely experimental with the continuity. He's got the different generations of Robotech interacting with one another. And if we show this next example, we're even bringing in different realities and continuities of Robotech. So if you recognize that vessel, it's actually from Robotech 3000. Now, somebody I'd like to bring up to join us is Brendan. Are you here? Yeah. Brendan, come on up.
Yeah. Brendan, come on up. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Brendan Fletcher.
Thanks, guys. So glad to have you with us.
Thanks for having me.
We're so glad to have you.
What can I tell you?
You know everything.
What can we tell them?
Let's, well, tell us about yourself and Robotech.
Oh man, we're gonna start there. I know it sounds weird. I wouldn't be making comics today for a living if it wasn't for Robotech. I know that's a little weird. My best buddy, who I do comics with, we did Gotham Academy, we're doing a book for Image right now called Isola. We were obsessed with Robotech growing up, and instead of doing our schoolwork, we would doodle specifically Lancer's eyes. It was the toughest thing to draw. Some of you sketch Lancer, right? Yeah. I don't know what it was. At 10 years old, that shape was just tough to nail down, and we just drew Lancer over and over and over again. Rick Hunter, you got it. It's all about the hair. But we're like 10, 11-year-old, 12-year-old kids with the worst French teacher in the world. I'm Canadian, we have to take French as kids. The worst French teacher in the world. We did not pay attention. We sat in the back of the room making up our own Robotech stories and trying to figure out how to draw Lancer. And it just became like a passion. Like storytelling for me started as a thing I really wanted to do by making up my own Robotech stories. And I think, you know, moving on to become a professional storyteller, there's a lot of things that I know I have brought to my work that were like lessons learned from Robotech. And I had kind of promised myself, wrapping up all my DC Comics books and moving on to my own IP that I'm making, that was the trajectory of my life for now. And nothing could bring me back to anyone else's IP. Robotech was the only thing that would do it. I was powerless. Chris over at, formerly of Titan Comics, approached me last year at New York Comic Con, sat down for a coffee, and he said, I think you know why I wanted to talk to you. And I was like, you want to talk about Robotech, right? I know why you want to talk to me. And he's like, we want to talk about Robotech. I said, I'm not going to do it, Chris. I'm not going to do it. And he said, I think you need to do it. And he broke me down in like 30 seconds. I was really excited. I'm really excited by what these guys have been doing with this book. Taking this thing that a lot of us grew up with, got really excited about, we've lived with, and sort of putting a twist on it that recontextualizes the whole thing and opens up the world of Robotech to limitless possibilities. As a storyteller, that was like catnip. I couldn't say no to it, so I'm super pumped about everything moving forward, and I would love to talk about it if I'm allowed to.
Well, I think what we can tease a little bit.
Okay.
It's fans who have been following the series are already discovering that future Dana Sterling is coming into the Macross timeline. That's what's going on at Event Horizon right now.
Yeah.
So maybe you can just tell a little bit of what you would want to do with Dana without giving away the details, the spoilers.
Jeez, Tommy. Yeah, let's give some spoilers. Have you all been reading this Titans Comics thing? Yeah. It's really cool. If you haven't checked it out yet, give it a shot. They're collected into trades. They're super easy to get a hold of. Titan is actually on the show floor too. They've got them all there. I mean, I'm not speaking out of school. I guess it's a little bit spoilery to the current thing, but Dana has come back, and she had to come back because of stuff that happened in the original timeline. And she has come back to keep that from happening. I can't tell you how Simon's story wraps up, but I will say that as a result of coming back, she has possibly saved the world, the universe, every timeline, but she has doomed herself personally. And that's where I pick it up, is I want to tell the story of how Dana wrestles with her place in the Robotech universe, and her place in her family, and her place in society as it now is on this earth.
How do we follow up that? Actually, in the Event Horizon series, fans are being introduced to you through the backup stories that you're collaborating with Sarah Stone on.
Yeah. Oh my God, Sarah! Did you guys read Sarah's Transformer comics?
Yes.
Yeah.
She basically like made Windblade. She is incredible. And I have wanted to work with Sarah for years, and we kind of committed to work with each other, and then she took a gig doing the Netflix Castlevania show, and I was like, we're never gonna make comics together. And when the opportunity came up to do 2-page shorts in the back of this, I called her up and I said, look, I know you're busy. Can you spare me like a weekend a month for a few months just to do a short Robotech story? She said, yeah, she's amazing. She's so great. She's known for drawing transforming robots. And ironically, our little story doesn't really feature transforming robots very much, but you know. Robotech's about the people. It just happens to have cool transforming robots in it. Thank you.
You know, and folks, we're talking about cool transforming robots. Let's talk about